Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy Mccoy, finally back with part 2 of this list of famous dyslexics, and I'm sure there's probably quite more than just 30 or 40, which I hope to list, possibly up to either 30 or even 40. Anywho, yeah, I did want to upload a bit earlier, but I normally like to wait till enough space and hopefully no one will interrupt my videos and all that. But my mum and her ex-boyfriend or whatever, I think it's her ex-boyfriend or whatever, was round. Anyway, whatever. I don't know if they're still together or they're ex or whatever. But anyway, it's probably a bit too much personal info, or that's not something that I know about. But anyway, I'll try and stick to the topic. Sorry. But yeah, one of the things I was thinking is because it's the 14th today, and due to my patterns, I would have loved to also to have covered like one of the strengths of dyslexia, which is problem solving. We're quite good at problem solving because of my patterns. The number 14 for some reason, I think it's because it comes after 13, which I think is a negative thing. So I'm like, for 13 I normally think of negative things or problems. So for 14 I try and think more of solutions, if not positive things as well. Anyway, but yeah, that's a dyslexic strength as well as creativity and things like that. So I know I covered some of the weaknesses we have, so it would be good to have a list of both of those things, like to cover both sides. So if a dyslexic person is not doing well, it doesn't mean, because some people, if you only hear about the strengths, they might think that a dyslexic person who's not doing well, it might just be lazy. But if they know that sometimes we do have weaknesses in some areas, but strengths in others, like trade-offs, then they might know we're doing our best and we need to work in certain areas which we are stronger at. Like in careers, if we work on areas which we're stronger. Funny enough, there are still actually dyslexics who are writers, and probably even some famous writers with dyslexia. So that's another thing that I could perhaps find out if I do a bit more research for part 3. Anyway, I'll try not to waffle too much, and here goes. So I'll say this is continuing on from part 1. I hope I titled it right, because I got a bad feeling that I called it part 1 again, so I might have to edit that. Anyway, but yeah, so number 11, please check out part 1 if you haven't already done so, by the way. Number 11, Tom, and this one is a hard one to pronounce, whether you've got dyslexia or not, I'm sure, but Tom Holland, I think it is, who's probably of Greek origin, thinking about his name, but is a British entrepreneur and inventor who was on the British equivalent of, or British version rather, of The Apprentice, run by Alan Sugar, and he won one of the episodes when Alan Sugar was looking for a business partner who was get up to, I think it was £250,000 to get into business. And it was quite funny because he made quite a few mistakes. Tom Holland, apologies if I pronounced that wrong. I should probably try and Google how to pronounce it. But he made quite a few mistakes, and he was sort of, in some ways, he was a bit geeky and like he was like giggling at times, and he didn't always seem the most professional. But in the end, he won in spite of making quite a lot of mistakes. But yeah, so again, please check out, well, as I say again, I don't think I mentioned this point, sorry. But yeah, please check out any of these on Google. You can always Google like famous dyslexics. And to be honest, my idea is not original really, because people have listed this on Google before. And I think there are a few other people who have covered videos about famous dyslexics. I've done so myself before, but I think someone else came up with the idea before me, if I'm honest. But yeah, please Google them, especially if you need some inspiration or confidence. But yeah, Tom Holland, again, apologies if I butchered his surname, and maybe there's, if you Google it, you might be able to find how to pronounce it best. Sometimes they have that thing where you press it and it sort of tells you how to pronounce it, and then you can just repeat that one. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know a huge amount about him, but I know he is an inventor. I think he's probably still, hopefully, quite successful at the moment, but he was very successfal to win The Apprentice, and I'm not sure, I'm not 100% sure if he's still working with Alan Sugar or not, but yeah, hopefully he's doing well wherever he is. And he talked a lot about being dyslexic, so he inspired quite a lot of people, and how he was, I think, a struggling inventor. Alan Sugar, I think, said he's got all these ideas and he's quite creative and brilliant, but I think, well, words to that effect, but he needed, obviously he must have thought he was quite awesome to invest in him, probably even brilliant or excellent, but he needed some help as he lost his way a bit. Anyway, I think I waffled enough on that one, but yeah, please check out and Google that if you haven't already found that information about Tom Holland. It'd probably be a bit hard for even a non-dyslexic to spell, let alone for pretty much everyone, unless you're from the spelling bee or whatever. It's probably hard for most people to spell it. But anyway, moving on, number 12, talking about inspiration and motivation, and like the number 12 reminds me of motivation and that sort of thing. Billy Blanks is an African American who invented Taibo, which is a type of martial arts. I think he did quite a few different martial arts, like kickboxing, karate, and many different things. And he sort of combined them together in something called Taibo. And he has his own workout videos from the Taibo channel, and he talks a lot about being dyslexic. If you type it into Google and or YouTube, you'll find he's got, especially on YouTube, he's got quite a lot of videos about being dyslexic and how he overcame his dyslexia, if you want to call it that, but yeah, or how he even uses his dyslexia properly, because a lot of people talk about how they use their dyslexia because we have creative strengths, and Kevin O'Leary, who I mentioned before, talks about it being a superpower in a way, and Richard Branson talks about it in a positive way, and even Damon John probably, and others talk about it in a positive way in many cases, or certainly say it doesn't have to be a barrier for success. But yeah, I included him for 12 because I think he's quite an inspirational and motivational character, especially for African Americans or Black people and dyslexics, which are two groups I hope to help in October, especially. Number 13, I did, when I was thinking about who I could cover for this, I thought I'm not 100% sure who I could cover for 13 because it's like a number I think of as negative. But unfortunately, a lot of dyslexics are involved in crime and things like that, and that sort of thing, probably due to low self-esteem. In this case, it's very hard to excuse, but I'm going to include a really negative person who I'm quite ashamed has got dyslexic. I know it's kind of supposed to be inspiring, but for just one point on this list, I'm going to include someone who I think it'd be very hard to agree is a good person, if you know what I mean. I think most people agree he's quite an evil and horrible person, but I'm not sure if he's still alive or not, but his name is, or was, David Copeland, I believe, and he was like someone who was a neo-Nazi, and he put nail bombs in. So sorry again for this negative one, but for 13, someone I think we could be a bit ashamed of, but I know most of the people on this hopefully will be inspiring. Again, I know not everyone on this will be everyone's cup of tea, like Richard Branson. Some people, he's a bit of a polarizing character. He's popular again excuse me, amongst some, but not everyone. But this guy, I think, unless obviously you're a neo-Nazi, he's someone you wouldn't agree with. Yeah, he put nail bombs in places like including homosexual areas as well as Black and Asian areas in the UK. But yeah, I thought I'd include a negative one for 13, so please forgive me for that one. 14, Craig McCaw is, I'm not sure if he's still with us or not, if he's still alive or not, I mean, but he is or was mobile. I hope he's still alive, kind of, but I'd love to be able to network with him and things like that, and projects on charitable ideas for dyslexic people in developing countries and things like that, for instance, and inspiring others. But he is or was a mobile phone cellular, i.e. mobile phone. Again, my pronunciation is not always the best, but I think in America they call it cellular or something like that. But he was is a pioneer of that industry, and I think he sold his company. But he is worth billions. He's one of the dyslexic billionaires, as I often call them, like Richard Branson and a few others who I hope to mention on this list, perhaps. Yeah, he is. He had his own island, just like Richard Branson, a fellow dyslexic, and I think he sold his island. No, sorry, I think he bought his island. No, sorry, I think he sold his island, and he bought. Some people joked that he probably had to sell it to buy this Ferrari. He bought the most expensive Ferrari in the world. I think it was $45 million. I double check that one, but at the time, so I'm not sure if anyone's broke that record. But yeah, he's obviously got a lot of money to be able to afford $45 million. But yeah, he's a billionaire, and I think he was neighbours for a long time. I'm not sure if he still is, but with someone who was the richest person in the world for a long time, and some people even speculate is dyslexic as well, but I'm not going to include him in this list because I have no evidence to either prove or deny that, but which is Bill Gates, who was the richest person in the world for like 13, 14 or even 15 years or so. But yeah, I think he was one of his neighbours, and even Bill Gates said he's quite a visionary. He thinks well ahead of the pack. So yeah, so a good dyslexic trait, like being able to see the future, predict the future in a relatively accurate manner. I think that's a very good dyslexic trait. Yeah, if you can think of any comments you have on dyslexic traits, like negative and positive, please post them in the comments, and what you think about some of these characters. such as Craig Mccoy, if you've ever heard of him. Number 15, there are quite a few famous dyslexic entrepreneurs. Some of them will probably be semi-famous or semi-famous, and a lot of people might not have heard them, obviously, of them. They might be Z-list celebrities, if you like, or they might be just people who I've read about, because I've read about famous and rich and successful dyslexics who are successful in their chosen field, in many cases financial. But yeah, people like Gary Conn, if I pronounce his name right again, who worked for a big bank. But yeah, so people like that. So again, they might not be people who many people have heard of, but they are sort of, as I say, semi-famous and very successful, as I say, in their chosen fields. Number 16, on the Dyslexic Advantage website, either on Google or on which can be found on Google, their own website, or even on other forms of social media, like on Facebook, but especially on YouTube, you'll see some great videos by Dyslexic Advantage, and they talk about quite a few people. Again, they'll probably be semi-famous, or they'll be famous within the dyslexic community and that sort of thing. Number 17, Tom Holland, who is I think he's the son of someone called Dominic Holland, who was also like a Z-list actor. I'm not sure if he's dyslexic as well. I don't think he is, but he might be. But Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man. I haven't really watched the latest version of Spider-Man. I don't really watch many films, but he's also dyslexic, and he talked about being dyslexic as well. Number 18, a lot of film producers and directors like Steven Spielberg, who have been interviewed about being dyslexic, and were diagnosed a lot later on. Like sometimes it's their children who are diagnosed with dyslexia, and later on they get tested to see if they're dyslexic as well, and they find that because it's genetic, they also have dyslexia, but they weren't picked up because in their day it wasn't so well known. So yeah, he was like, school should have perhaps picked it up, but yeah, he's been interviewed by Quinn Bradley, someone called Quinn Bradley, who I briefly mentioned before, who has his own YouTube channel where he talks about talks to famous dyslexics like Steven Spielberg and Whoopi Goldberg. So please check out his channel. There's also like Steve McQueen, the Black British director, who's also dyslexic, and I think it'd be great, as I mentioned before, if dyslexic people work together on making films. And also there are 3 people involved in DreamWorks. All of them are very financially successful and successful in the film industry. I suppose it's how you define success. Many people define success as money. You could probably define it in different ways as well. But the 3 people involved in making DreamWorks, I'm not sure if DreamWorks still exists anymore. I think it's been sold, but I think it'd be great to see a DreamWorks, a dyslexic DreamWorks, where it's like helps aspiring dyslexic filmmakers to work together and encourage each other and work and support each other, and like with the money they have, they can invest in filmmaking. But yeah, there are 3 of them involved. I think David Geffen is one of them. Steven Spielberg is the other. I can't remember the name of the third person, but it can be checked again on Dyslexic Advantage. They mentioned the 3 dyslexic people involved in DreamWorks. Number 19, again, there are probably many film directors as well as actors and actresses like Orlando Bloom, who's part of Made by Dyslexia, as well as Keira Knightley, who's also part of Made by Dyslexia, and others who have talked about being dyslexic. And number 20, if you have any you could add to the list. Sometimes I read about these people, but then I forget to mention some of them, or I think afterwards I forgot to mention those people. But yeah, if you can think of any, or if you want to copy and paste any links or anything like that, hopefully trusted links. Anyone who opens links would do so at their own risk. But yeah, if you want to do that to inspire other dyslexics, or post anything, like if this video has been inspirational or has any way I can improve it. Sorry if I get a bit nervous or I lose my train of thought, like I forget which number I counted to, or I sort of forget some of the names I wanted to mention, so I might panic a bit. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope it inspires as many dyslexic people as possible, which is, I suppose, the main goal of this video. And I am out. Peace and love.